Hello and welcome to my podcast where I'll be discussing how modern media in the form of social media is encapsulating the audience and how mass media is working with sport to increase engagement through a variety of mass communication. New mass media has produced audiences that are much more diverse, where fans of sport can come together with common interests, with it never being easier to communicate with others online who have similar interests. Mass media has a widespread reach, which means audiences are of a large scale, providing the possibility of reaching sports consumers from around the world. Rowan Hutchins, 2014. With the current digital sport media, Ecology has meant that audiences now receive messages and content in a lot of different ways, while simultaneously engaging and consuming sport, with the lines between receiver and sender often becoming blurred. McQuillan Jews, 2020. The same author suggests that audiences are generated in both society, with people encouraging and stimulating certain types of content, and through transformations in media. People are now being attracted to certain types of content that they prefer and probably wouldn't have been exposed to without new media outlets. Digital media is playing a vital role in the new sports media ecology, which has brought about the emergence of a new multi-channel transmedia audiences who receive and consume sport content through a multitude of different platforms. From streaming services such as YouTube and Twitch, and social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok and Facebook, all dependent on what the consumers' preferences are to how they like consuming their sport. I've already written a blog on the relevance of TikTok in today's era of consumer behaviours and how bite-sized, attention-grabbing content is satisfying the need of the younger audiences. The variety of different online platforms that we now have to our exposure with the advancements in technology is providing the sports consumer with more selection in how they most enjoy consuming sport and different elements within sport that interest different fans. In comparison to traditional media, which is a one-way form of communication, digital media allows anyone to become a content creator, conversing with their followers as to what they would like to see next and discussing relevant topics with an audience of like-minded people. A great example of this is new form of television pundit through online media platforms like YouTube. Football fans have created their own channels of communication with other fans of the same team, creating a community online for the fans to have a voice about all things regarding their team. The rise of fan-created commentary has formed a new personalised sports broadcasting. One of the key examples of this is Arsenal Fan TV, which is arguably the most high-profile example of fan-created content to date. During the final stages of Arsene Wenger's tenure at Arsenal, football fans in general would gain huge enjoyment of watching Arsenal Fan TV on YouTube to watch their enraged fans vent about all things Arsenal, which as a neutral was hilarious to watch. Sticking with football, use my uncle for example. He's 54 and has always consumed sport by listening live on the radio and checking scores on teletext on the telly. This brings me a whole lot of nostalgia thinking about the pixely graphics and the joy of him seeing his Liverpool team winning. However, now that he's aware of a website called YouTube, he follows the Liverpool games live by watching a Liverpool fan streaming footage of him watching the game, discussing the main points of the action and their opinion on what's unfolding. To me, I find this interesting because personally I wouldn't choose to consume sport that way, whereas my uncle, who's so used to visualising the game through partly imagination from listening to what the commentator is saying, he explained to me that now it gives him the sense of watching the games with other Liverpool fans, enjoying the passion of the fan and feeling like he's celebrating a goal together from the comfort of his home. Once he explained this to me, I got it straight away. There was such a variety in how people best like to consume sport, some completely different to others. But through the advancements of digital media, we now have so many options to our disposal. There's a bit of something that will suit anyone. Individuals spend hours a day on their phones and on social medias, consistently looking at a vast range of content from anything that interests them and constantly being shown things that may take their fancy based on algorithms that have been collected. Social media has been found to increase the interest of spectators and manage the relationships with the consumer and the sport, Nassar et al. 2018. An example of the relationship between social media and sport is in the form of the UFC. The UFC as an organisation want to put on the best fights that will generate the most amount of people watching as possible. It is no coincidence that big fights happen based off what the fans have been calling out for via their social media platforms. This shows how modern media and sport work together to increase engagement in both sport and social media platforms, ultimately providing the consumer with what they want. As we all know, sport has become more of an entertainment business than ever before. Multi-channel audiences are much more prevalent in new sport media ecology as the Gen Z population have grown up using technology devices, so it's their go-to for consumption and communication. With the Gen Z population, it could be said that they will consume more sport than ever before by watching a game live via TV broadcast, During the game, it's more than likely for them to go on their phone using social media platforms and see a vast amount of posts regarding the game that they are watching. As sports organisations are trying to engage with their followers as much as they can, the sports fan will be overloaded with information surrounding the game, with pictures, video highlights and all sorts of content, from serious pundits to joke parody pages on Twitter. Whatever you want to see surrounding sport, you can. The influence of social media has meant that audiences have such a desire to stay up to date on all things sport, with audiences believing if they weren't to, then this would result in a social decline. Different platforms can satisfy the consumer in alternative ways. Personally, I see Twitter as a bit of a modern day newspaper, as it's a place where I receive information about breaking news regarding sports topics. This is different to printed media in the traditional sense, as comment sections where you can reply to content creators break the one-way communication. However, it's still as important to not take everything you see as the truth. For me, Instagram is very visual. I find it interesting how sports content is different on different platforms, as to me it seems less informative but focuses on engaging you by striking images and bite-sized videos. As social medias are wrestling with one another to gain the attention of consumers around the world, they are trying to find new ways to keep people on the site or the app. Interestingly, with TikTok's incredible rise, as I mentioned in my blog, which you should definitely check out, Instagram has seen this and introduced Instagram Reels to their platform. They've clearly identified that consumer behaviours have shifted to being fed in entertainment in the form of short, intriguing videos. The rise of new digital media has thrown the concept of audiences into question, with modes of consumption becoming proliferated and institutional media becoming outdated. Rowan Hutchinson's 2014. As traditional media has been in decline for years, and new digital media been seen as the way forward, mainly because it's a cheaper way of reaching mass communication, social media platforms also need to keep evolving to stay relevant and be people's choice of consumption to prevent being left behind. The social media era allows everything that you could possibly want to know in a much more easily accessible way, as you can find it all in the same place. As the reader, if you look at one post, you'll be flooded with a variety of options and opinions from other people that may intrigue you into looking further. This is the aim of each individual spending longer on these platforms. If I was to look at YouTube, for example, you can watch one video on a topic and it will suggest a vast array of other content surrounding similar topics, potentially meaning that you could spend hours on the site when you only planned on looking at one video. Thanks for listening to my podcast on how modern media in the use of social medias are working in tandem with sport to encapsulate the audience in ways that wouldn't be possible in the past.